Long ago, in a village known as Upaka, people were dying in numbers. In a week, 10 people could die without any actual cause of death. This became an issue that the people had to consult their oracle, known as Leko. The oracle told them that one of their ancestors slept with an outcast, and this is a taboo to the gods, and for this they will have to continue to suffer the consequences of that act. So they pleaded for what they can do to avert the curse that have been placed on them. The oracle told them each community should always provide a virgin girl to serve in the shrine of Leko, as this will atone for the sins committed by their ancestors. This they did generations after generations. Generations after, there lived a man named Ebe, who was a native of Upaka village. He was married and had children. He and his family settled in the township. He was a fisherman. One day, a message came from his village that his daughter, Ira, had been chosen by the oracle for atonement to their gods. He became sad and was filled with fear and anxiety. He wondered how he was going to tell his wife. Ebe finally told his wife, and she cried bitterly. The thought of losing her child, but she was reminded of the grave consequences of not yielding to the demand of the oracle. It means the other children will die like chicken. So the couple were left with no choice but to painfully release Ira. This broke the heart of the mother to the point that she lived a life of depression. Ira, who was 4 years old, was taken by her father to the village for atonement. He bought hoes, cutlasses, clothes, beads, and many other things. He carried her to the shrine like a bride who is about to be married. Later on, she was taken to the riverside for initiation to the gods. A public humiliation rites were done on her, where her hair was shaved and her clothes were stripped off her body. She was made to only tie wrapper. This is the way she's always supposed to appear for the rest of her life, as a slave girl to the oracle. So she was handed over to the chief priest as his bride at a tender age of 4. The chief priest has 500 maidens who are his wives. He married them just the same way Ira was initiated to him, and also due to the fear of the same curse that was running in their village. Some of these women have become old, while some were still young. These wives were warned never to reveal anything that happens in the shrine to people whenever they go to the farm. If they ever did, terrible curse will befall them and their families. So they are to live with this secret for the rest of their lives. The cutlass and hoes that they brought during their initiation was to be used to cultivate the large farms of the chief priest. The chief priest sleeps with whichever one he wants, and whenever they get pregnant, they are left to cater for their children by themselves without the help of the chief priest. This is how these women have been living as slaves with the old chief priest. Ira, being the youngest wife, would do all the chores in the compound. She was trained to prepare the medicines that the chief priest will use for people who got fortified for gunshot. Whenever they are going to the farm, she will be the one to carry all the hoes, cutlasses of the older wives. The farm is far, very far. It gets into the thick forest and they will have to cross two rivers to get there. Most times, Hira falls into the river because she is little. Hira would sometimes wish she too was older than someone so that her work can reduce. She was really suffering as the youngest wife. Due to hunger and maltreatment in the shrine, Hira will oftentimes sneak out to the village begging for food, and anytime her absence is noticed, she will be severely punished for leaving the compound. But because the hunger is much, she will always look for a way to go out and beg for food. Hira looks different from other children in the village. This makes little children to run after her while calling her names like goats, dirty girl, etc. But she doesn't seem to mind because of hunger. Whenever she sees her mates going to school, she often wishes she was like them. So sometimes she will sneak into the village primary school and hide under the table where no one will see her in order to learn. From there, she started learning little things like sit, stand, jump, etc. 4 years later, the chief priest died. All the wives, including little Hira, was made to perform widowhood rites. They were all placed in a room for 6 days without food and water. Hira fainted on the 3rd day, but was revived and made to complete the widowhood rites. After the burial of the chief priest, life went on as usual in the shrine. One day, Hira, being 8 years old, went about into the village begging for food. She came across some tourists who were in the village. These tourists were snapping and taking pictures of the village. When they saw Hira, they were shocked, especially because of how she looked, and so they interrogated her. Despite the fact that Hira was told never to reveal anything to anyone about the shrine, she didn't care. She told them everything because she didn't like the way she was different from the other children. More so, she was suffering. 6 months later, the tourists came back to the village, and this time they came with an NGO. Even though the process of Hira's release was a difficult one, they stood their ground and convinced the council of chief priests to release Hira and the other maidens. They made them know that this practice was a barbaric one and that human beings are not supposed to be subjected or made to be slaves to any oracle. They paid all the money that they were asked to pay. Finally, Hira and the other maidens were released from the bondage of Leko. These stories gave the maidens money and sewing machines in order to start their lives afresh and to go back to their families. Hira was given to a woman who said she knew where her community was located, so money was given to her to help take Hira to her people. After the liberation, Hira was very happy. This is freedom at last, she said to herself. Hira was happy she was going to see her mother and her siblings again. She kept imagining how grown her siblings were now. She tried to recollect her mother's face, but she couldn't because she was only 4 years old when she was brought to the shrine. So the woman got to her community and met with the elders. The woman told them how a group of white people had come to liberate Hira and the other maidens that were in the shrine. On hearing this, The elders sighed, screamed, and shouted, "Abomination! Abomination! Abomination!" They pushed and drove Ira and the woman away. They said, "The gods forbid." They will never allow Ira to come back into the community. Never, they said. "Do you want the death to start to ravage the community again?" And so Ira was rejected and banished to never step her foot to the community again. So all hopes of Ira uniting with her family was dashed to the ground. So Ira had no choice than to go back to the shrine again. And this time she became all alone in the shrine because the other maidens have all gone to start their new lives. Ira was all alone and broken-hearted. She felt so rejected and she wondered why she was even born. She started crying. So while in the shrine, she resumed her normal life of going to beg for food. She also would collect charcoal and sell them at the village market. This she did for 3 years until one day someone who was part of the tourists recognized her in the market and asked her, "Hira, I thought you have been liberated. What are you doing here?" Hira narrated everything that she went through. The man felt for her. He took Hira and reported the situation to the NGO. So they looked for a foster home for her. They asked her what she wants to do with her life. Hira remembered that while in the village, she has always admired little children that are going to school. So she told them she would like to go to school. They offered her scholarship to go to school. Through the NGO, Hira was able to complete her studies. Hira grew up to be very brilliant and she studied nursing in the university. Even though Hira has been liberated physically, she later realized that there was another bondage that she was battling with, and this one was spiritual. Maybe because of the long time she stayed in the shrine, she thought to herself, Hira still suffers from rejection. This rejection made Hira live in 11 different foster homes. The people she lived with would just suddenly hate her and they would tell her to leave. The NGO kept helping to put Hira in one foster home or another. One day, Hira confided in a friend about her concerns. This friend was a child of God. So, she invited Hira to her church. The moment Hira entered the church, she started screaming, "Fire! Fire! Fire!" And the evil spirits that was in her started confessing everything they had done to her. They said her ancestors committed a sacrilege, and because of this, they made her live as a slave at a very tender age of 4. They said they hate her for bringing the tourists that came to liberate her and the other maidens, and for this they were going to make her suffer with the spirit of rejection. They said she would never have a settled life and she would never reunite with her family. The spirit said a lot of things. The pastor grieved in his spirit after hearing all these things the evil spirit was saying through Hira, laid his hands on her and cast out the evil spirit. She fell under the power and was set free. She got up and realized that her body was light and the burden in her heart had left her. So, The pastor told her everything she confessed when she was manifesting and asked if it was true. She confirmed it was true and narrated her story. So the pastor, moved with compassion, promised to unite her back to her family. So the pastor appointed 3 members to go in search of Ira's family. With the little information provided by Ira, they were able to trace the shrine and somehow was able to see somebody who knew her story and who was there during her initiation. The person provided them with the information of her parents and the town where her parents were residing. The people appointed by the pastor finally met with Ira's mother and her siblings. It happens that Ira's father had died a long time ago, precisely when Ira was 6 years old. When the mother heard about the reason for their visit, she almost fainted because she had thought Ira had been sacrificed and maybe dead. She held the visitors and wept happily for the good news they brought to her. She quickly got ready with her other children and followed them to see her daughter. Meanwhile, Ira has been in the church guest house, hoping that the little information she gave them will help them locate her family. She wondered if her parents were found, would they accept to come or would they still reject her like the community did? She wondered why her mom had to let her go when she was just 4 years old. Could it be that her mother never liked her? She wondered why she was this cursed to the extent that her own biological parents accepted to release her to the gods. As she pondered on these things, she noticed that after the deliverance, she could remember bits and pieces of her growing up. She noticed she can now remember her mom's face, the things her mom bought for her, and things she did with her mom. She told herself that despite the rejection, she was going to forgive her parents for everything they allowed to happen to her. As the mom and siblings approached the church, Ira sighted them from afar. She ran to them and hugged her mom, and they all started crying, hugging each other. Ira's mom asked Ira, "Is this really you, my daughter?" And Ira replied, "Mom, I'm the one." And they started crying again. After the reunion, the next day, Ira asked the mom why they had released her to the gods. And the mom explained her own side of the story and also explained how her life has never been the same ever since Ira was released to the gods. Ira was happy to know that she was genuinely loved by her parents, but because of fear and anxiety, they gave in to the wickedness of the oracle. She later soon learned of the death of her father, and she wondered why the gods could not save her father from dying. Despite everything she went through, which means they lied and manipulated their family and the families of the people they took hostage. What a barbaric tradition, she said to herself. Months later, Ira got a job in a very big hospital, where the medical director, who is the son of a wealthy man, fell in love with her and proposed to her. Her soon-to-be husband was a Christian, just like her. They both got married and had 3 children. Hira's husband was very rich. He had a lot of properties. Hira made sure her mom lived with them because she wanted to catch up with the love she missed while growing up as a little girl. The end. This story is based on a true life story. Only the names and places were altered. The moral lessons of this story is that being a child of God and knowing God's promises for their lives would have made them, that is Mr. Ebe and his wife, not to fall for the deceit of the traditions. Now, imagine the hurt and pain they have to go through, losing their only daughter to the oracle and making such a little girl grow up without the mother's love and care. The father of the girl still lost his life despite consenting to his family traditions. Thank God for God's mercies that kept Hira and made her to still get to her God's given destiny. The next moral lesson here is that when your earthly parents fail you, know that there is a God who created you that is far more better than your earthly parents, is the arranger of life, is the giver of great destinies. No condition is permanent. Someone may be poor and be a nobody today, but no one knows what tomorrow holds for that person except God, our creator, our maker. Praise be to God in the highest. The end.